History Month celebration. Give me some. We went live real fast.
Right? All right, wake up.
Guys, we were going live. All right. Had some technical difficulties. I tell you, technology will humble you in a heartbeat. But you know what? I'm grateful to God that we're here. I am so excited because not only is today the last day of Black History Month, it's a leap year, and we have an opportunity to sit down with some of the foremost voices in Worcester that are inspiring to me, and we have an opportunity to hear from them. On this panel, they're going to be talking about, their experiences and, what Black History Month means to them. So I'm going to give a brief introduction and about each of them, and then, we're going to go into it because this is about them. All right. So I'm excited. So I'm going to start from the end and come on down to the lovely lady next to me. So we have Dr. Sheri McLean, who's the CEO and founder of McLean Coaching and Consulting. And she is going to tell you what she does when she answers her first question. um, we have Sean Harris, who is the Director of Community Engagement for Quincy Community College. He's the only man on the panel. Okay, we have Sheri Medina, who's the Executive Director for the Village Worcester. And we have Jennifer Gaskin, who is the president of the Worcester Caribbean Festival. I'm so excited. And she is also the co-host of Don't Touch My Podcast. So thank you to my phenomenal guests. And I have seen them in action in many occasions, and I've been inspired by them. And I was very excited when every single one of them said yes immediately when I asked them if they could be on this panel to wrap up this Black History Month celebration. So I'm going to just turn over to you guys, just introduce, what it is that you do, and then just tell me what Black History Month means to you. So I'm going to start with Jennifer.
Damn. So, like as you mentioned, my name is Jennifer Gaskin. I'm the founder and president of the Worcester Caribbean American Carnival Association, which presents the annual Caribbean American Carnival here in Worcester in August. I'm also the co-host of Don't Touch My Podcast with Giselle Rivera Flores. I've also written a book called The Exit, which is available on like Amazon and wherever. Just Google it. And I write a Substack called Bacchanal Business, and I'm always talking about the city of Worcester. So definitely go and read that. What does Black History Month mean to me? Not much, because I'm a Black person. History is an everyday thing. You need to know your history in order not to repeat it. And to me, Black history is everybody's history, because the reality is that we all come from one Black woman in Africa. We've proven that through DNA. So to me, Black History Month, to me, it's singling Black people out as if our history is different or our legacy is different than other people's, when in fact our legacy is the legacy of everyone, because we are the original people. So that's how I feel about Black History Month.
Thank you.
Word. Peace, everybody. My name is Sheri Medina. I'm the director of the Village Worcester. For folks who aren't familiar, the Village was born with the energy created by the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. And I always have to say that because I'm hoping we haven't forgotten their names in the last 4 years and the many who have come after them. And the Village is an Afrocentric cultural learning and healing center, which for us means everyone is welcome, but we're a Black space and we're really big on empowering Black people. So when you show up to our space, if you're in a yoga class, a nutrition class, a art class, whatever it is, the person in a position of leadership or authority or teaching is going to be a Black person. And we're really, really big on that because we don't see that enough in our community. We also provide affordable office and commercial space to 12 different grassroots and nonprofit organizations in our community that are all Black and Brown led, and do holistic healing workshops. And in addition, I'm a member of the Black Heritage Committee, which puts on the Juneteenth Festival, Black Families Together, which has been doing some policy work and trying to build community since the murders of our beautiful Black people in the summer of 2020. We're coming on a 4-year anniversary of making change in the schools, with police, in our city, in a number of spaces. And for me, Black History Month is just a time that our people are like a captive audience. That's what me and my mom always say. We're going to do Black History 366 this year, 365 every other year. But I feel like it's when our people are wanting, or at least open. And so we'll deal with y'all for them days and hope that you just stay on the train. But it's for me personally really a time to just kind of honor my ancestors, which I do on a regular basis, but really reflect on particularly Carter G. Woodson, whose photo we brought to remember. And for folks who don't know Carter G. Woodson, he is recognized as the father of Black History Month. He created Negro History Week from February 7th to the 14th in 1926. So in 2 years, we'll be on the 100-year anniversary of Negro History Week, which would become Black History Month. So it's just a time to really like pay homage to those who came before us, do the work we have to do to make a future for the ones who will come after us.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. Oh, well,
Pass it along.
my name's Sean Harris. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at Quincy Community College. I do a couple other things on the side. I won't go into all of that, but one of my most prized possessions right now is I'm the founder and creator of the Black Men's Dinner Club called The Dinner Club.
Nice.
And once a month, we have men of color from all walks of life that get together and just break bread and have dinner and network. And that allows us to see each other in spaces where we typically don't see each other. So that, we actually had dinner club last night and there was 34 of us.
Wow.
We had a good time. And would it be a Black History Month? We had soul food, so I'm still recovering. Can't eat that no more. But so, that's one of the things that I'm happiest most about right now. In terms of Black History Month, it's really twofold, right? Because we know history should be celebrated every day. We know the contributions of Black people in this country didn't happen in February. They happened, and we know that American history doesn't happen without Black history, right? But the reality is knowing that versus what's going to be taught are different. So the necessity in having it, because systemically, if we don't have this conversations, schools will never have this conversation, right? If we don't push the narrative about how important it is for us to talk about our contributions, those contributions will never be discussed. And if you even look at the evolution of Black History Month from the time I was in school till now, because they'll tell you in school now, they make you believe your history begins with slavery. Right? So the concept that you come into this space in chains and in bondage, what does that do for your self-worth as a young person? So for me, it's upon us to make sure that the accurate and true narrative of what Black history looks like is taught and educated. And I don't ever expect that the schools will do what's right for Black people. So I feel like I have to do that myself.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Shers.
So, hi everybody. I'm Dr. Sheri McLean. I'm the founder and CEO of McLean Coaching and Consulting. Providing developmental coaching and leadership training. I am a proud Jamaican woman, rooting from the parish of St. Mary. You would call it in Jamaica a country girl, but I love the country. It's so much peaceful and cool and all the fruits and everything that you can get from the land. So I definitely embrace that. In terms of Black history, what I think about it, and from my standpoint, I'm always talking about leadership and legacy. And legacy definitely resonates with me when it comes down to Black History Month and just or Black history. And there are a couple of things that I associate that with. So with the L, I'm thinking liberation. E, excellence. G, generations. A, activism. C, culture, and Y, youth. Right. So we have these experiences that we've gone through. We've had these experiences that we know about, from historical leaders. And so how do we translate that and ensure that live on? And Sean touched on something which, I'm planning to touch on at some point, but then really understanding that it starts from your home, right? If we leave it to the society, if we leave it to the school to translate this information, it's not going to happen the way it should be in an authentic way. And so we have to start like having those conversations at home, the same way you gather your kids to do, movie night. Then, it could be a night we're going to learn about our history. We're going to learn about all these things, and so that that is preserved through generations.
All right, thank you. Wow, that is an impressive panel, isn't it? Like, Lord, I love it. that like everybody in the panel, like you talk about what Black history means to you, but you are also out there, doing the work. So you are putting actions to your words. So what would you say has been your most significant contribution to educating, yourself and your family about Black history? And anyone could answer.
That's a big. I think for me, it's just living authentically, right? Just being in whatever space as who I am, exactly who I am, and showing my children and grandchildren that you can show up exactly as you are. All of my children, well, sorry, one of them isn't locked, but he's natural. But my children, my grandchildren all have locks in their hair. And people have for many years, even up until I want to say a month ago, somebody made a comment about, oh, if you have locks in your hair, you can't have a professional job. That's not true. I'm a senior director at my job. I sit on the executive team. I'm a leader at my job. And I show up every day at work with my hair in locks. So stop telling, people or children or even adults that they can't show up as they are to do whatever it is that they're doing. The way I look doesn't change my ability to do my job. So I think for me, it's really just showing up authentically, speaking my truth, not being afraid to speak my truth, showing my children that even if you're wrong, I'm always gonna be there as your mother, and I'll tell you I'm wrong, you're wrong, but I'm always gonna have your back, and making sure that they understand that that's who they're supposed to be in their community. I want people to always look at them. My children are my legacy. That's how I feel. So I want them people to look at them and say, wow, your parents really instill good things. I don't want people to look at my children and say, wow, what did your parents do to you? You know what I mean? But I think for me, it's really just showing up authentically as I am, presenting myself as I am. Like you said I'm a proud Jamaican woman. You show up as proud of who you are, and that whatever that encompasses. And I think just showing up as a Black woman authentically is what I do every day, to push forward the Black experience, because frankly it's not easy showing up every day as a Black.
And there's so much power in that. There's so All right. Anyone else want to tackle that or?
I will, and I would actually like to just build on what Jen was talking about. And I know Suzanne knows this. There's a quote that I live by, and it comes from a Jay-Z interview where he said, "I walk in every room as myself." I'm not cowering. My voice doesn't change. I'm not speaking soft like that. That's how we have to live. But I think not enough of us realize the strength that happens in that and walking in your truth. So that's part of it for me as well. When my kids were young, I created what we called Saturday school. And I got the idea of Saturday school because when I was younger, I wasn't always on the up and up. I wasn't always a good dude, right? But the Nation of Islam pulled me off the corner and had me going to Saturday school. And it changed how I looked at the world. But when I looked at, so both of my kids went to school in a town where they were the only Afro Latinos in that school. And I knew that they did nothing historically accurate about who they were. So I did Saturday school, but I did it around I did around civic engagement. I did it around arts. Like my kids could tell you at 10, 11 years old, they could walk you through the art museum and show you what their favorite painting was. Because I always wanted my kids to be well-rounded and be able to have conversations with anyone and everyone, because I know as Black people, we have to be 100 times better walking in the door. Because the expectation is that we never will. Yeah. Right. So Saturday school was a big piece of it for me, but that came, from the Nation of Islam. And then not a lot of people know this, but my educational background, one of my bachelor's and one of my masters is in interior architecture and design. And part of my thesis for that was I created a supplemental school for Black boys. And what that was it was called the Harris School for Boys. And what that school was when you got out of school, whether it's your regular public school, middle school, high school, you came to Harris. And that was part of my thesis, that you came to Harris School and you got all the stuff that you didn't get in a regular education. So I actually worked with Jeffrey Canada, who out of New York, who built his own school system in New York City. on what that looked like. And it wasn't something that was ever developed into a school, obviously, but in my thesis, I learned so much about not only who I was, but what it looked like educating Black boys, right? The, fifth grade failure syndrome. And why by, sixth grade, a lot of our young men have checked out. And a lot of that is because they don't get the story of themselves in school, and I refuse to allow that to happen with my children.
All right, thank you. Wow.
I mean, just agreeing with, everything that's been said and just really, a point that Jen made, just showing up and just being who you are, right? That was something for me, especially when I, moved from Jamaica to here. That was something for me. I had to find my way to stand in who I am, right? Jamaica, I was like, I'm fine. I'm doing all these things and everybody around me, we have the same color, really, most of us. But then when you get here, it's a different dynamic, it's a different work environment, and trying to navigate that. And I've had situations where I'll be in a room or I step in a place and then I'm looked at differently. I'm like, what's going on? What are we looking at? Can I see it too? Type thing. But then just really embracing that and listening and saying that, yeah, I'm proud of who I am. I love my skin. I love my hair. I love my natural hair, although it's very hard to manage, but love it anyway. I would never, I remember, going through process of just, processing my ear and you get burns and I'm like, oh my gosh,
And
I
it
wouldn't do
smells.
that. And it smells right.
And it smells.
And I'm like, I wouldn't do that again. Like, I know I'm, natural for life and, and that type of thing. So, it's just really embracing all of that and everything that makes you you.
Okay. All right.
Can I just add, I think I'm the 26, so I'm probably like their kids. That's why I'm like, I'm probably friends.
I do have a child older than
So I'd like to think that I am the product of all the work that they're speaking about through my mother, Parley Jones, because my mom got knowledge of self with yeah, my mom is a star and everybody knows it, and I know it the most because I live with her and get to see it in every single way, shape, and form. So there's that.
That's right.
And we work together, so we're like a mom-daughter team.
Love it, love it,
Out
love
here.
it.
I think my mom probably has similar stories to folks up here, and then really intentionally raised me and my brother in a way that we grew up knowing who we were. That wasn't even an option. There was nothing else on the table. My mom was my first teacher. We did Kwanzaa in the house. We never had a Christmas tree in our house, right? Like we were very pulled back from these Western ideals and traditions, and really embraced African heritage and who we are and our Black culture. We were in movement spaces. We were in organizing spaces. Those spaces existed for young people when I was young. I think we need more grassroots, racial equity centered and Black centered programming for young people right now, because that's where I learned so much. And then these systems of oppression will teach you, what you need to know, because I think when you have a strong foundation, a tree that's roots are really good, you can walk through the world and anything happen and you're good. So my college didn't make sense, right? Because I already knew better, and all these other things don't make sense if you're rooted the right way. I think there's a lot of young people who don't have the roots in their culture and who they are. So they're blown any kind of way, which is really it's devastating to see, quite frankly, and it is a serious, serious issue that I don't know if we talk about in that way and see it in that way, and every one of us own it in that way to then do our job to do what we have to do. I know I'm giggling listening to Mr. Sean talk about Saturday school, because we've been doing Saturday school at the village, right? We were teaching 6 to 14-year-olds about Middle Passage, about Emmett Till, about slavery, about freedom, right? Like this is work that we're doing. I was gonna say Miss Chantel's son was one of the first graduates in our first cohort, right? Like we're doing this work on a regular basis because we're aware, and quite frankly, there are institutions in our community who are out here, who have been out here, and they don't do this work, right? Like there's only so much they can do, especially if their staff and their team don't look like us and they're not really centered in Blackness, quite frankly, in a just world, right? In Blackness, in a world free of homophobia, in a world where we're thinking about making money and capitalism in a different way. They're not rooted in those kind of ideals, so they can only do so much with our kids, and that's what we need, quite frankly. So
No.
I'm grateful for my mama and grateful for my community who took really like
Yeah.
embraced me and taught me so much. I'm grateful for the experiences and the privilege I had of being college educated and being able to come back with a different lens and the commitment to my people ultimately.
All right, wonderful. No, thank you guys. It sounds like you guys have all been very intentional because you do realize that the spaces that we occupy don't have the information or actually don't have the correct information for us to be proud of our heritage. Truthfully, most times the information that's given like teaches us to, not humble ourselves, but to belittle ourselves versus
Shrink.
Yeah,
Shrink
like
yourself.
shrink yourself because it's like I think humbling is so much different from belittling. So you guys have been intentional doing it. So how do you guys deal with the trauma though that comes from like consistently showing up as yourself and folks trying to tell you like who you are is not enough? So I know trauma comes from that. So like that might be too heavy.
Yeah. No, I mean, okay.
Well, Jen, you want to go? I want to talk about.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You said, that they don't have the information is there. It's purposely not given to you. You know what I'm saying? There's a huge difference with not knowing and not being,
No,
given,
you're intentionally.
given access. But it's crazy because I'm a super nerd when it comes to stuff, right? So I've been doing a lot of reading around your body keeps the score, right?
Yeah.
How the trauma of carrying what you carry every day, how it affects you. And so so I had a heart attack a year and a half ago. And so I don't live a crazy healthy lifestyle. Well, I didn't back then. I look crazy. Like I was always on the road. I'm eating trash, fast food, and so after my heart attack, I'm thinking they're gonna be like, "Oh, you got 4 clogged arteries and all that." And doctor said, "You have no blockages. Your heart attack was 100% stress related."
Oh,
Stress
that stress kills.
right? And I'm like, what am I stressed out about? Like, yo, really out.
That's
But
you
it's
carrying trauma.
carrying, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't really break that down or understand that until I got back into therapy, right? So as I got back into therapy and started unpacking stuff, now I'm like, oh yeah, I get it, right? I get it. But what parallels with that is this is around the same time I decided to start Dinner Club, right? And I decided to start Dinner Club because I was in corporate development for a year and a half, and I would be in spaces with 9 or 10 different millionaires from Massachusetts that run companies. And I would go weeks without seeing anybody who looked like me, except for their lowest level workers in their warehouses. Right? No one else. Like there's no one in management. No females, maybe 1 or 2 females of color at the head of HR, but definitely no men of color at those tables. Right. So I'm having these conversations and I'm like, man, I'm going a couple weeks and seeing no brothers. All right. And I live in a town where I ain't running into nobody unless you happen to be in Leicester Walmart. Right. So it was one of those things. So, but I didn't realize I was carrying all of that. So I needed the cleanse of being around people I felt safe with. So that Dinner Club came out of that. But as I'm still to this day, because I honestly believe that therapy is a lifelong journey, right?
Yeah.
So as I start to unpack stuff and go through stuff, I constantly look at myself thinking like, damn, I didn't even realize I was having that effect on me. Like I didn't even realize that I was carrying that. And again, my therapist gave that book, your body keeps the score, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, yo, this was
Right. That was me reading. I'm like, wait, what?
But the fun part is like, I'm like, yo, this is me at 20, right?
Right,
This is me at 20, and this is me at 50.
Right.
Wow.
So that's 30 years.
Right? And so, 30 years of just carrying that. And Lord, like, not 30, because 50 years that I've been here to carry, but the weight of that. So when you talk about that trauma, that's no joke. And that's one of the reasons that as Black men, we have one of the highest suicide rates there is. Because guess what? We're not allowed to unpack that. We can't call our people like, yo, I'm hurting. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of those things for me. And that's why I'm always about checking on your strong friends, checking in with my people, letting my people know, and be like, yo, I tell all my boys, yo, I love you. Yeah, I love you because it may be the only time in their day that they ever hear it. So
All right.
No, and so my husband passed away on November 25th of a heart attack.
shit. Sorry to hear that.
Um, And I will say over the past, I mean, my husband and I were together for 23 years, so I know my husband very well. My husband did not have an easy life. My husband, he came here from Trinidad in middle school, but he moved to Roxbury in Boston. He moved to Roxbury, and he would tell me like he went to the middle school, and they first of all they're gonna tease you because you show up, you have an accent, right? So you're different, blah blah blah. So what is his way to fit in? He gonna go to the streets, right? So he went to the streets, and on the streets he could make a name because he knew he could go out there. He could go out there and bully. And he will tell you straight up. I was a stick up kid. I would just go downtown Boston and stick up people for their sneakers, their clothes, their chain, whatever. Take it off, drop it, right? Um, when my husband was 19 years old, he was driving a stolen car in Dorchester, and the police, state police and Boston police chased him up Dorchester Ave and crashed him into a tree. The steering wheel crushed his chest, and my husband had to have open heart surgery. He they showed him on TV. We were watching the news, and my husband was on TV, handcuffed to the bed, and they're showing on TV them arraigning him in that bed after they just did open heart surgery, right? He went to the Shattuck in Boston, and if listen, you don't want to go to the Shattuck in Boston, that would be the equivalent of going to, like, I don't even know. Right, Rikers, right? And that's where he recovered from open heart surgery, and he recovered for 2 months, and then they sent him to Walpole State Prison. And then they would say, "Oh, come, for your medicine." And my husband said he refused the medicine, so they sent him to the hole. So he spent most of his 4.5 years in the hole because he's like, "I'm not gonna take medicine because if I'm in that medicine line, everybody's gonna know I'm weak. So I would rather they just send me to the hole." He told me about police officers getting into when he got arrested, the police officers going into the cell, taking their gun off and fighting them in the cell, the black men in the cell. You know what I mean? My husband did 4.5 years in prison. He actually got charged with assault and battery on the state trooper because they said he swerved the car and tried to knock him off. So they said he tried to kill the state trooper. What about me, who crashed into the pole and nearly died, right? So, anyways, yeah. So, but what I tell people all the time, when my husband got out of prison, it was at least 10 years before he even could attempt to get his life back. And he only really even got his life back because Duval Patrick passed quarry reform. And immediately when quarry reform was passed, he was 10 years out from his last thing. And I immediately went through and applied and wiped his, right? My husband worked 13 years for the state of Massachusetts. My husband passed away, like I said, November 25th. November 27th, I called the state of Massachusetts and said, "Hey, my husband passed away. He was an active employee." The lady said, "Wait a minute. He was at work on Friday." I said, "I know." Anyways, fast forward. What's today? February 29th. My husband was an employee of the state of Massachusetts for 12 years. Ask me, have I gotten a single penny from the state of Massachusetts? And you know what my daughter said to me yesterday? She said, "Mom, so if this happened, and what if you didn't have a job?" I said, "Exactly. We would be homeless and hungry." And my husband worked for the state of all tax dollars, pay for that, right? But they would have left his family destitute, right? And it was funny because my husband used to say, I would joke with him all the time, and I said, "I'm tired of working." I said, "Can we sell drugs today?" He said, "Hey, just give me the thing. I won't go to work tomorrow." You know what I mean? Just give me the work. You know what I mean? So there was an easier way. There's always an easier way to fast money, right? But he put those 12 years in because he wanted to make sure that we were good, that we were always good, right? But this is where we sit right now. So when you think, I don't know if it's because he's a black guy. I can't say. I can't say that for true. But what I can say is that he's a everyday worker and that they don't give a shit about the everyday worker.
And he's black.
They don't give right, and he's black, and they clearly didn't care about his health because he showed up every day still and went to work. You know, so when people say to you, "Take the PTO," take the goddamn PTO because they don't care about you and they don't care about your feelings. And don't let the outside world disrupt your peace, right? Like you talking about, you had a heart attack over stress, over carrying trauma, not anything you were doing to yourself personally, but what the world was doing to you. So as black people, as people of color, because we share this with not only black people, we get the worst of it. Let's just be honest, because we went through hundreds of years of slavery, and we continue. You know, if you're brown and Hispanic or this and that, you can pass, so to speak. You're an acceptable person of color. When I show up, there's no denying who I am. So even with all of this, like we're showing up every day, we're fighting for that, fighting for ourselves, our family, our legacy, our people, our community. When you talk about Trump, like we have to deal with that trauma. It was April of last year that my husband said to me he had gotten sick and was in the hospital. And he had came home, so he hadn't. My husband was a very daily marijuana smoker. So he hadn't smoked it for a couple of days because he was sick. And what he said to me is, Jennifer, I realize now that I have anxiety. I smoke because I have anxiety. Wow. Now that I haven't been smoking for days, I realize. Wow. Now. So we have to deal with the trauma. We have to deal with the everyday. We have to deal with the fact that we have trauma around dealing with law enforcement. For example, I got pulled over not too long ago, and the police officer is trying to engage with me. And I'm like, please just take my license and registration and get the hell away from my window because I'm about to have a panic attack because you're at my window. And he's like, well, you need to, I need to tell you, and you shouldn't have, I don't have an attitude. I just don't want to talk to you. Get away from my window. And I said, I have that right not to talk to you, correct? He said, yes. I said, so please take my license and registration and go. You have to set your boundaries. That's how you deal with the trauma. You have to set your boundaries. And even if that means, like I said, license and registration, get away from my window. If that means that you can't go to certain events because it brings up trauma for you, don't go to those events. If you don't want to have certain conversations because it brings up trauma in you, don't do that. Your doctors everybody's doctor is telling you to exercise. What I'm gonna tell you for Black people, exercise. We needed to relieve the stress. We needed to relieve the anxiety. We are predisposed to all kinds of non-communicable diseases, diabetes, heart disease, any disease that you go look at. The parameters for Black and brown people are through the roof. Whether my socioeconomic standards are the same as a white person, I'm still more likely to die. So we have to take care of our physical and mental health.
Yes.
And we're carrying trauma in our physical and our mental. And we have to take care of both.
Yeah. Dr. Sheri?
I think I'll leave it with Jen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For
That-
sharing your husband, your
Absolutely.
family story. I
No, thank you.
appreciate you sharing your sharing stories in the hopes that someone learns and we don't have to then repeat steps. And as someone, again, I always like to say I'm humbled that I got to learn through story and not experience. I was humble enough to listen and receive from women, people, period, around me when I was growing up. So I skipped some steps that I know others didn't, right? And
Right.
I'm mad grateful for that.
As you should be.
Yeah, for sure. I don't take it for granted for a minute. And I think there's a this little mic wants to
Yeah,
stay in
it's
there.
active.
But I think there's just a Worcester, I just want to say, has a really particularly nasty history with people who tell the truth. And locally, like we like to think we're not Chicago and Boston and DC, and we absolutely are when it comes to racism and anti-blackness specifically. When people want to talk about what's happening with Black folks, people really get an attitude in the city. And a lot of them have been in positions of power for generations, and I mean, we smile and act like we want them to come to our events, and they're horrible, horrible people. That's not a measure of success for the village. I don't care who comes from that world. I care who comes from our world, right? So I encourage us to divest from that if we really want to think about the harm that's been done to others, if we're really showing up in a collective way. Our mayors are like these people have caused active harm to particularly Black women in this community who have really like dedicated their lives to creating different worlds for us in the city of Worcester. Um, and as far as again, I think I got to learn from others, and we were joking earlier we might end up on like a most wanted list or something from being here,
Already
which
on
is fine.
I've been on that list. Yeah, I've been on that.
Right?
End up on a watch list.
There you go, right? But one of my favorite, for sport, I sometimes like to watch like, the old school, like Farrakhan and Khalid Muhammad. He used to soldier like on the Donahue show. And Khalid Muhammad, but they asked how he felt about being banned by the Congress and this, that, and the other. And he was like, as a freedom fighter, as someone who's rooted in my people, it is the greatest honor that can be paid. And so I think to just be present with whatever is coming, because doing things like this, right, and putting yourself out there, it means that we're watching. It also means that those who prey on our community are also watching, right? Especially when we live stream things like this, which is perfectly fine for me. But it comes with something, right?
No, it does.
Absolutely. When I put my voice out there in 2020 for George Floyd, and right, getting all kinds of crazy, like I want to kill you, I want, right, and
Death
that's
threats.
the reality
Literally
that
death
we're,
threats.
yes, we from grown white men,
Yeah,
right, who are
grown white
fired,
men.
like
Yep.
firefighters and police officers,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
I don't think we talk about Martin Luther King all the time. We talk about Rosa Parks, and we don't honor the fact that they probably had some really shitty days, because it's a lot that comes to you when you put yourself out there, when you're consistently doing righteous work and you're not teetering on the line, you're really out here. It's a lot that comes with it. But if you're really out here, then it's truly an honor, and a commitment to our ancestors and to our children.
The point that I'm sure there's people who are embarrassed in his family.
Well, you seen Bernice said, "Don't talk about my mama and daddy. This is Martin Luther
Right.
King Day. Let's talk about it." Right.
Talk
So
something
protect your
else.
ancestors,
Talk
y'all.
something else.
No, so I was very intentional with this. I knew who I was bringing on the panel. It was no surprise. As I said, I know all of you all individually, and I was really interested to not only have me here, but for others to hear, because it's kind of like I was talking about, like, I don't watch Amistad because
No, I
like
don't
for
watch slave
me,
movies.
like those, I don't want to see a
Yeah.
slave movie.
I don't watch slave movies.
I will never give Hollywood money
To watch slave
off of
movies.
black, not even
Yeah.
off of black.
To
black
glorify.
people.
Right,
I will never pay for black anger.
No, I'm
Exactly.
good.
It
Exactly.
doesn't have to be a
So
slave movie. Like,
I get it. Like, I knew that there will be pushback, and I know folks would, because what I'm known for, and I know folks will probably prefer if I didn't have a panel, that addresses it. But I also find that when you try to have conversation about Black pain or Black trauma, or even saying the word Black, you get a lot of pushback. And I've been very privileged to be in a lot of spaces. I'm not gonna lie, based on my work experience, based on my education, based on just me just going in and be like, I'm here. So I've been able to be privy to a lot of conversations. And then, when you say something, then it's kind of like, oh, like it's like, okay, that's not okay to say, but it's just like, how can I not address the things that hurt me? How can I not address the things that hurt my people? So I think it was very intentional, for me to put this panel together and to have it be live stream. And I know they might be pushback or feedback, but I'm thinking, because just because we deny something doesn't make it go away. So me or you denying the fact that we have trauma doesn't make it any less traumatic for us. And we all know that keeping silence about abuse only benefits the abuser. It doesn't benefit the abused. So yes, we're all privileged on this panel. Like we all have opportunity to be in spaces and places where our voice could be heard. So, but I'm always thinking of the next person who look like me, that does not have that luxury, that does not have the opportunity to speak up for themselves or shrink in themselves. You talked about Black men suicide rate. Black women in corporate America
Oh Lord,
are
forget it.
exhausted. Like they're exhausted. Just showing up every day as themselves, it's like walking a moat with a dragon that breathes fire. And
Look, like even looking at you, and you and I have had this conversation before, right?
yes,
You get up in the morning, you're like, okay, I gotta go in the office. Do I have too much booty showing? Is my hair okay? Are they gonna judge me? Like for me, I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna go to work in this outfit and they're gonna think I'm freaking Nicki Minaj. Let me take this damn thing off. You know what I mean? Like, why do I have to think about it?
yeah, just get dressed.
Why can't I just get dressed?
Yeah.
It's my body. I didn't choose it. You know what I mean? I was born with it, right? So why do I have to think about how somebody's going to judge me about what I'm born with?
Yeah.
But that's
A
what you
reality.
have to think about going into work. My hair. Are they going to judge me? Oh, my jewelry, is it too Afrocentric? Is somebody going to judge me for my shoes or my like whatever? Whatever, because looking at you or me in the room is going to be different than looking at, a white woman in the room. Like I remember coming to work one day and I had on a Gucci belt. And I remember one of the late, like I'm in the conference room and I'm doing something or whatever. And she's like, oh, I like your belt. Is it real? Would you ask a white woman if her Gucci belt was real? Or are you just asking me because it's me if my Gucci belt is real?
Yeah.
Right? Or I was just recently my kids and I went to the Poconos last week just for a little vacation a takeaway, and not a lot of people that look like us. And we were in the line at the arcade. The machine broke or something. And I went to look on the other side if there was another machine. And I walked back, and there was a white man standing there. And he's like, "Oh, I'm in line." And I said, "Yeah, we were in line. The machine broke. I went to see if there was another one on the other side, and there's not. So now I'm back." "Oh, well, I didn't see you." And you know what I said to him, Suzanne? I said, "Well, this morning I got up and I looked in the mirror and I was there, and you weren't." So I wasn't aware that you needed to see me for me to be here. But I said, "But you know what? You can use this machine. We'll go find them." So sometimes you just gotta walk away. Like, I wasn't gonna go there with him because then I would have been wrong, right? Because he would have said whatever he said, and everybody would have only seen my reaction.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have cared what he said to me. They would have talked about how I responded because I would have took him to task. But then they would have said, "Oh, look at the angry Black woman."
Yeah.
So no, I just hit him with a zinger and left.
Okay. To laugh through the pain.
No, you
Sometimes, I remember similar to yours, I had a corporate job. I was in a corporate, I was a store manager for a particular brand. We had a corporate visit and I prepped for this visit for weeks. And this job, I could only wear black. Like we could only wear black. So I was wearing full black. And I mean, I killed that corporate visit, but I just remember I had put on some sparkling earrings, these little pink little thing with a little, I mean, I need some sparkle in my life, right? And like just so much working. I was salary at the time, which is joke, by the way.
That is salary and them giving you a laptop.
Because I was
the
working
biggest.
40, 60, 70-hour weeks. And for this visit, I worked really hard. And I just remember asking, the district manager for, the feedback from this big wig from corporate after how the visit went. She's like, well, he thought your earring was too colorful.
That's all you got out of the entire visit was your earring.
I'm gonna move on. So,
he had to find something.
Like,
he had to find something.
Yeah. But anyway, and so like that's why I'm so intentional about my joy and how I approach things, like my circle, my kids, my husband, my friends, because it's like things like that, slides like that, like
you don't need it.
It will break you if you don't address it and like have other areas of joy. But yeah, like I said, 60, 70-hour weeks just preparing for this visit.
But your earrings.
And he said,
but your
his
earrings.
feedback, my earrings were too sparkly.
It's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Right, but your
Literally,
earrings.
Yeah. So
What?
I get it. Like I was like, wow, I was in it. I mean, anyway, but that was my fault. Like I chose to do it, right? So it's okay. All right, Dr. Sheri, so I have a question for you. Why do you think it's so hard for people to address trauma?
I think the first part of it is not really coming to terms that you have trauma. And I say that because, and I'm just reflecting on just my journey over the past couple of months, and just my experiences that I've had. And when I realized and I look at it, I'm like, but this was messed up. Like you start to think in different situations and you're like, no, but that was shady, or that was wrong. Why didn't I see that? And there's an example where there was an ask of me, and like you said, Suzanne, you're pulling in all these hours and you're doing all these things, and I was like 80, 90, 100 hours, but then it still wasn't enough. And, I remember I said to someone, I said, I think the only thing that is left for me to do is like cut my heart out, put it on a plate and give it. Because I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else they're looking for. And my counterpart, who of course is of a different complexion, was not being asked for the same thing. And I'm looking at that and that was really defeating for me, right? And so in that moment, I didn't really see it, but you have to step out of that space, right? You have to step out of that space and look and think, oh my gosh, this is really happening to me. So that's the first part of it, is of really getting to the space where you understand that you have gone through these situations, you've been hurt. Like even today, I went on a meeting, and I haven't been on like a Teams meeting, and that's a meeting I used to use, previously. The moment the call dropped, my heart started to skip a beat, because then it took me back to a time where, you know what I mean? So there are different, there are different little triggers that are within the space that you don't even realize until something happens. And, as Sean said, that we have to go through that continuous process. So it's coming to the place and realizing that, okay, then I have gone through these situations, then what are the resources and the support that I can give to heal? And that's how that's going to translate. Again, go back to legacy. That's how that's going to translate with our kids, and really, embracing that and supporting that. If we think about, the generation that we have, where Gen Z and, the alphas, they're coming up, they have a lot of trauma that's going on, and like with suicidal rate. If we don't set the example for them and let them know it's okay to get a therapist, it's okay to get the support, then for them, they're not going to tap into that. And then we're going to transition in a direction that is not going to really help our people and strengthen our people and get to where we need to get to.
Do you remember you were on a panel at the Y, and one of the women talked about how Black women experience out of body experience, like you're disconnected from your body. And I remember sitting in the audience and she was talking about how, after trauma that she went through, years of this, like just being disconnected. And I just remember sitting in the audience and thinking to myself, yo, that's what that is. Because I knew that like you said, reflecting back on my experience, I'm like, that's what that That's what that is.
And
So I didn't even realize.
yeah.
Mm.
I think that's why it's so important for conversations like this to happen because I think, again, trauma can be isolated, right? To see that's why, I'm always open to having conversations with you and like, because, like we have the same life in some instance, like the same experiences, you work in corporate America, anything on you that is quoted as too black, it's like magnified and pointed out. And it's kind of like, it's like every day. It's like if you're not careful, you have to question yourself every single day. Like, who do I show up as? No, you need to just show up as you. But it's a brave. Like it is so brave to just walk in and show up as yourself. And Sean, you talk about it all the time. And I've done the Jay-Z walk, and I did it with my tutu, of course. But
That's okay.
to be anybody else, but it's consistently telling us that we need to be different. So, but why is it so difficult for folks to hear though about the Black experience? Because it makes people so uncomfortable. I think any other race, or I know, Jen, I know the race or thing, like they could talk about their pain and their trauma, but once you put the word black in front of it, it's like people like get scared. They don't want to talk about. We cannot have courageous and intentional conversation, but we won't shift. It's not my panel, so talk to me, because I know, but why is it so difficult?
I talk to people about this all the time. First of all, I'm not into the oppression Olympics, right? Everybody wants to be oppressed. Like, yo, mine was worse than yours. We lost this many people in it. We lost it. I'm not into the oppression Olympics.
Like,
Yeah.
Thing. Thought process of victimization is one that not only is the victim mentality, but if you look at victimization nationally, I'll use the U.S. There have been cultures that have, that have played the victim game and everything, that receive benefits financially, like for that trauma, right? For that oppression. Black people have done the most with the least.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Not to play the like done the most with the least. And even if you look at, because they always go back to, well, you've been here forever. How come you haven't pulled yourself up by your bootstraps yet? First of all, African Americans in this country are the only people that have come to this country in bondage and lost their culture along the way.
No
Right?
saying.
Right? No
Choose to
say.
come over here.
One, you're starting over from ground zero, but also when started to really kill it, right, during Reconstruction, Armed Reconstruction, they burnt our shit down. Right? Look at Tulsa. Look at the Black Wall Street. Look at Rosewood. You look,
Seneca Village.
yeah,
New York
absolutely.
City.
Yeah, New York City. Like
Central Park.
1980, they
like
bombed in Philly.
Yeah.
Wall Street. Wall Street
Family.
is
Yeah.
literally built on black bodies, right? So that
Girls in the church.
yeah, that how come you haven't pulled yourself up from your bootstrap? Well, one, you cut off our hands every time. But people don't want to hear that side. So then you have to admit about the atrocities that happen to black people in this country. So of course no one wants to hear that. And also no one wants to hear it because when you hear it, then you're obligated to change or do something about it. And it's easy to not. Like even if you look at, this time where, we're really tech savvy and all that, over the past 4 or 5 years, there's been serious trauma that's happened to black bodies, people in black community and all of that. And that it's just expected that we just go along with it. When things happen to other cultures, there's legislation within months.
Yes.
There's no hate campaigns for other cultures within months. With us, we're just supposed to take. And so, because again, if you acknowledge it, now you have to fix it. And there's no interest in fixing it because someone has to be the whipping.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's if we acknowledge it, then we have to do, first of all, we have to acknowledge our culpability in the situation. And then we also then have to do something. So if we just pretend like it doesn't exist, then we don't have to do anything. We can even bring that right here to the city of Worcester. Our former chief of police literally said on record, there's no racism in the police force. Why is that going to be
had
a
a chance to run it back and like double down?
double down and said it again, right? So why would he take that perspective? Because if he says it doesn't exist, then he has to do nothing about it. And that's the point of denying and erasure, is that we don't want to respond to what we've done to black and brown people. We just want to keep it that way. And if we acknowledge what we've done, then we have to fix what we've done. And it continues, like the village last year at some point, you guys had a session about life insurance. And just because, my father passed away 8 years ago. Right now, my aunt, who was a Boston police officer for 35 years, she's retired, and now is in her elderly point where we now have to figure out how to take care of her, how to pay to take care of her. But again, this is how black people lose their, like, we can't pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, because every time somebody tries to make one step forward, it's 10 steps back. And using my family as an example, if people don't have life insurance, what are you going to do in order to take care of that person in their elderly years, or to bury them? You're going to end up having to sell their stuff, which means that families who came here from the Caribbean, like my family came here from the Caribbean, were able to get jobs, purchase homes. Now, every time somebody elderly in our family gets sick, we have to sell that person's home to take care of them, or sell that person's home to bury them, because people didn't think about building we don't even know, like, as a community, we don't even know what we're supposed to be doing to protect our legacy. We have no idea, and nobody's teaching us. And that's why, places like the village, what you're doing with the dinner with the men, where you guys are having these conversations. I've been very open, following my father's passing, and now with my husband's passing. I tell people all the time, like, stuff that's happened, like, go make a will. Go in your phone and designate somebody to get digital access to your phone when you pass away. Make sure that your stuff is in order. We're legally married. I still had to go to the courthouse and get paperwork. You guys are this is crazy, right? I still had to go to the courthouse to get paperwork to get access to my husband's autopsy that I asked them for, that I authorized as his health boss. Right? So make sure that you're having conversations with your family about your finances, about planning for the future for your family. Make sure that you're having those conversations. Make sure that when your children are in elementary school, middle school, and high school, that you're having conversations with them about what are your interests, who do you want to be? Because, like I tell my kids, I don't care if you come home and you're like, Mom, I want to own an ice cream truck. That's freaking great. You better be the best ice cream truck out there, because I'm going to be out there telling everybody that my kid has an ice cream truck and is the best ice cream truck out there. So just make sure that you do it good. But we need to be talking talking the love into our children to counteract all the other crap that they have going around them. And our responsibility as my husband told me, I'm an elder now. He said, elder. No, he was like, no. He's like, Jen, you're an elder. Anyways, we need to lead by example. We need to be the mentors. We need to lead by example. I'm learning through the mistakes that my generation did not, my prior generation did not do. So now for me, like, as soon as when I went to that courthouse to do the paperwork for my husband, I filed my will at probate, and I made sure every challenge that I've had through this process, I made sure that was in that will for my kids, because I don't want them to have to sort my crap out. You know what I mean? Make sure my finances are in order. So if something happens to me, they don't have to sell my house to take care of me. so that they can have a legacy. So there's always some place for them to go. No matter what's happening in your life, you know that you always have a home base, and it's my house. That is our home base as a family. So it's we talked about this at the beginning. It starts at home. It starts at home, building your children up, putting so much love in them that the trauma, the whatever they're doing outside, it doesn't matter. My daughter walks in the room. I'm Anne-Marie Gaskin. You don't like me, that's your fault, that's your problem. Whatever, I'm Anne-Marie Gaskin, I'm great. And that's how you're supposed to. That's go out into the world.
No, absolutely. And I believe in teaching Black pride, but what is it about the word Black that conjures such fear?
Because they made it fearful.
I was going to say the issue with Blackness is that we're the only people in world history who are not human beings. We were not human back then, and we are still not human now. And I think if we got honest about that, right? Not in the sense of like us, because I see
we know
Black
that.
humans,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
Because I think when we sometimes like it's two worlds, right? And W.E.B. Du Bois talks about double consciousness way back then, right? And it's like who we know we are, and then who the world thinks we are, and we're stuck in that kind of middle space. But to just like speak and say that 12 million human beings were stolen from their home, dragged across the water, and dispersed across, right? Like the United States, the Caribbean, parts of South America, particularly
No, you
Brazil,
got to give
right?
the best stat. Not the best stat as
Okay,
in
well,
positive, but the best stat, which is, what was it, about 300,000 enslaved Africans came to
5% went to the United
5%
States.
went to the
It's like
United States.
400,000
The
people.
rest of them went to the Caribbean and South America. But when slavery was abolished, there was 3 million enslaved Africans in the United States and only about 400,000 left in the Caribbean because they worked us to death. In the Caribbean, it was 7 years was the life expectancy of an enslaved person in the Caribbean. So they would just work us until we die and go get more. And then when they outlawed going to get us from Africa, they just started bringing people from India. And that's why you see in the Caribbean, there's a decent amount of Indian population because they just started bringing them after they stopped being able to bring us. But in the United States, they bred the black women, the enslaved black women, to make more enslaved people to work. It was a financial gain. They insured black bodies on Wall Street, like literally insurance. There's businesses that built their portfolio on insuring black bodies as property. A lot of people's main wealth, like their main thing that it encompassed their wealth was owning black people in the United States. So black people have just been we are an opportunity to. We're not human beings. We're an opportunity.
Because of our dehumanization, I just have to say, like, everything about us trying to get free has been pathologized, meaning like they find a reason why we're crazy for wanting to be free. And they still do that today, right?
To this day.
So without being honest about the past, right? And that all those systems are still in place, all those structures are still in place. Right. And that's part of what we're talking about. Like, they don't want to change it. What it is systems of, like Ms. Jen just said, insurance, right? Like, who is really insuring these slave ships? Because if your ship got broken along the journey, you just don't get it fixed because of insurance policy, right? Like, the first accounting records in this country were the accountings of bodies coming through here, right? Like, gynecology is rooted in the suffering of Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy, and 8 other Black women who this man just was cutting into, right? And then went on to perfect his technique and do it with white women with medicine, right? So to just honor the fact that you can't do that to people if they were people, if they were human, right? And so the things we do today you could not do to people if they were human. And so part of that, when you say Black, you know what you're talking about, because for them, they know what's real. They know what we're going through on a daily basis. Just because we make it look cute and casual doesn't mean that it's not what it is, right? And so every institution is touched by it, and until we're honest about the fact that there is nothing in the world that's happened like chattel slavery, specifically the slavery that dispersed people from West Africa to the so-called New World over here. That 6 to 8 week journey where you're just, I mean,
Bowling in
the evils just can't. I mean, until we're honest about the evilness of that, the wickedness of that, the uniqueness of that in world history, not just for Africa, not just for like for the whole world, right? Then we can't get honest about figuring out a situation where people can comfortably say black and black people can comfortably live either. There's a white woman, Jane Elliott, who likes to do her little blue eye, brown eye test, right? Like have white people feel how, for a minute, feel how we feel, right? And she will, she asks groups of white people, raise your hand if you want to be treated the way that black people are treated in this country. And of course, none of them raise their hands, right? And then she then asks them, you don't raise your hand, which means you know what happens to them, and you're doing nothing about it. And I want to know why it's okay for them and it's not okay for you. And it's because we are not human. That's why that trauma is able to be passed all over the place. That's why people make big money on movies where we're being torn apart, right? Like it's because black trauma has been normalized. It's a regular thing.
Well, even look at the way that they show like George Floyd.
Oh, that's where I don't watch
the video.
None of that,
I've never, I don't watch any of it. But you're repeatedly showing this over and over and over again every day on TV. Why is that okay? If you see anything else, they're either gonna blur it out or they just don't show it. They'll tell you what happened to that person. But for black people, they're literally showing this thing over and over and over again every night on the news, like because because they've created this story that we're not human beings and it's okay to watch. But what I will say to people is watch what's happening around you. Like you don't even have to go back to history to see what is happening. We're watching it happen right now in Palestine. They have literally made Palestinians seem like they are not human beings. And every time somebody says, well, you 20,000 people in a place where more than 50% of them are women and children have died. All anybody can say, well, on October 7th, like you said, what does A have to do with B? 20,000 people have died. And we're all watching it. And guess what? If they get away with that, they'll just continue. Well, they'll just right. Yeah. Well, they've been getting away with it for a very long time. But if we continue to sit aside and watch this happen, who do you think is next?
I feel like we're always at the bottom of the totem pole, so it's like
we're the barometer.
Like we are the barometer.
We're the bottom.
Get traumatized.
We're the way other people lies. Like maybe it sucks, but not like that.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But guess what? If you can
we are
say,
the barometer.
Yeah. But if you can say on October 7th, I honestly, I don't, I don't condone anybody.
Yeah. No.
I don't condone that at all. But let's say if that means that somebody could say, okay, on March 1st, this black person or this group of black people who were fed up with being treated the way they've been treated in America went out and did some act. So because they did that, now they can go to war on all of us. Right? Because we said it's okay for Israel to do it in Palestine. And the U.S. government is funding it and standing alongside of them. What's that? So if we're silent about it,
about the atrocity done to others,
right? And we can't raise our hand and say, "See us as human beings," but don't see them as human beings.
Yeah.
No, come on. No, absolutely. You can't.
No, absolutely. If you are silent to the atrocity done to others, you're giving them permission to do it to you.
Permission to do it to you.
Permission to do it to you. So, I mean, there's so much. I always feel like there's so much to unpack in these situations. So, I'm gonna ask Sheri and you, because like when I grew up in Jamaica, like I was just a child. It wasn't until I came to America that I was black. Because I wasn't the black kid. I wasn't the only black. I wasn't the black girl. I was just Suzanne. Well, Sasha. And
I'm not telling y'all.
Now we need to hear it. Right? Sasha grew up normal and just like, and then when I came to America, I was black. I was the black girl. So what has that transition been like for you? Because I think you're the newest here, and like you were Sheri and Dr. Sher is our Sheri are, they're like Masaka your name down there. So, and then you came in, like you're the black in this space and the black in that space. You don't just get to be you, a human being.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, in Jamaica, I mean, we don't have we have different things that we look at. And like I said, you grew up in the country.
Yeah.
So you're like the country girl type thing.
Yeah.
But I was very proud of that.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I wasn't bothered, even though they'll say that, oh, okay, we're town girls. I'm like, it's okay. I go home. And I have my nice place and I have a big yard to run off and have fun. And food everywhere, and I don't need to go and buy mangoes at the store. I can pick them off the tree and apples and all that jazz. And I am your supplier. So I was very proud of that. So it was real when I came here, and I'm in this space where okay then you're in rooms where you're the only one, or you're on teams and you're the only one, and you're looking across. I remember one of my roles on the leadership team. I was the only black person on the leadership team. So we're on these meetings. I'm looking around and I'm like, I don't see nobody looking at me. And it was really good because there were other persons that were looking up, and that was reassurance for them that somebody was in that space representing. But it's a tough and lonely place. I can tell you, and I can tell you stories. It's very tough. Because when you're trying to represent, and you're trying to have your voice heard and trying to advocate, and others are not seeing it that way. It's like like Jen said, it's like you're going in every day and it's literally you're going to war. And you're thinking, okay, then what am I gonna have to deal with today? What am I gonna have to navigate? Just going through that. So it takes a lot. It really takes a lot. And there were things a lot of people don't believe, but I'm an introvert, right? So there are a lot of stuff that
Me too, honestly.
yeah.
No, you
See injustice, I'm gonna speak up, right? Yeah. And there were certain stuff, and I wasn't always that confident to do that. But then, when you get to the point where enough is enough, and you're like, no, this is in Jamaica, this is foolishness. And so, I had to get to the point where I had to, speak up and be very vocal about things, and just certain things. And it's, I think the thing for me is the passive aggressiveness.
Oh, I hate it. And then when you call it, it's like,
That's the thing that
what are you talking about?
yeah, passive aggressiveness, and Jen touched on it already, that when that is projected to you and then you respond, you're considered, oh, you're so aggressive, right? But then it's just those subtle little comments. Like comments have been made before where, oh, do you speak English? I'm like, what am I speaking? What am I supposed to speak, right? Do you still understand? I'm so confused, and for me, I don't like to put my PhD and doctorate in
Put it down.
Yeah, I would have put that down there. I would put it down there. You put it down there.
Put it down.
I'm saying, so yeah, I studied for 5 years, and I have a 4.0 GPA. Yeah. Understand English, right? So in moments like that, and I remember I was watching an interview on TikTok where there was this doctor on a Zoom call. Her name was up there and everything, and there was a white man that refused to call her doctor. Refused. And even after she corrected him and like doctor so and so, he refused. And I'm like, this man don't even know the struggle. A PhD is no joke. It makes you question your own existence, like the amount of work that goes into it, and it disconnects you from so many things. So the work that you put in and stuff like that. even after that, you're still not accepted or recognized. And I'm like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. It's ridiculous. So me, in my space and what I'm in right now, I show up. If Dr. Sheri and McLean, Dr. Sheri. If it's too long for you, it's Dr. Sheri. And I embrace that. I'm very proud. I'm the first doctor in my family.
Amen.
You know, and if my parents, if they were alive, I know they would be so proud because I came from a dad that didn't know how to read or write, but he was the smartest man I know. My mom struggled. She dropped out of school when she was 16. She worked her way, pushed her way through school. Before she passed, she was going to be a nurse, right? So, like, for me, it's a big thing. So if people don't want to see that, that's okay, and that's their business. My name is still Dr. Sheri.
Right. Yep.
And yes, it's just really embracing that, really embracing that, and having people now. John Maxwell talks about something called the law of the inner circle. Who are the people within your community that have your back, that are supporting you, that are really lifting you up, right? Because it's one thing when you're in that space, and it's that analogy with home, right? You tell your son you love him, you do all these things at home. When they go out there, whatever comes, they have that backing, right? Imagine if you are not telling him that you love him, and then he goes out there. You know what I like? They're already being set up to fail. So if you think about the inner circle and the people that are within that space, you have to ensure that those persons are really lifting you up. And if they're not, then you probably need to find some more people to hear something.
I love it. No, listen, your inner circle is so important. You and I talk consistently about sisterhood, and just like I will cut you off.
Easy.
I like my mental health is so important to me. Like, as Black people, our mental health is so important. So if you have somebody that's in your inner circle that's negative, that's competing with you, that give you the fake compliments, things like that, cut them off. We have enough external trauma. Then it's cut like no. Isn't it like the ghost inside the house or the killers inside the house, right? See, I don't watch Duffy movie. I don't watch horror movies.
I don't do horror.
But it's just like, I think, you touched on so much, in terms of us as, Black people, we need to be prepared. Like, we need to get our will, we need to get our insurance, we need to do 401k, people. And if the company's matching it, match that. And
That's free.
be prepared. Anything that you could take advantage of, like take advantage of, and like you said, your inner circle. And don't be afraid to outgrow people. It's okay. Don't be afraid to say, like, don't be afraid to set boundaries. Like, I'm big on boundaries, and I'm grateful that I'm able to compartmentalize. Like, I could have people like in certain boxes, like I pull them out
when you want
like when I want to, because again, it's just like there's so much coming at me. It's like boom, boom, slingshot, darts, arrow, like coming at all of us. Like,
slingshot, darts, arrow. Damn.
So we gotta protect ourselves, Sean.
One thing I was just gonna say, and it builds on what Jen was talking about when you talk about we often leave a bill instead of a will.
Lord.
One thing that I've had my family do is I started just a regular Gmail, and it's called Harris Legal Papers at gmail.com.
Yeah, you email
all of our insurance policies are sent to there. All of our copies of driver's license, passports, all that.
That's a good.
Lord forbid your house burned down.
Right, you still got copies,
yeah. You can go in and print all of that. So obviously it's free, but so if something ever happens to me and my kids need access to that insurance policy, they know they go in there because it's historically proven that if you can't find documentation within a window of time, insurance companies will not pay you.
Yeah, you're done for.
And so if you're not good at record keeping at home, or if Lord forbid you're in a situation where your husband is in charge of all the finances, right? And you don't know who he pays the car payment to. You don't know that. You don't know that, and you don't have access to that.
You don't know where you get oil from.
Yeah, right. That's gone. So all of those important documents, as simple as that, just have them emailed to that separate email address. Every single one of you have that email address with access to the password, and then Lord forbid something happened, everyone has that same wealth of information.
No,
And what
Simple
my
and free.
father actually did, my father kept trying to talk to me about, like, when I pass, and I'm like, Dad, don't talk to me about death. Goodbye.
We never want to.
I never, I'm like, do not talk to me. Click, right? But you know what my father did? He photocopied all of it, put it in an envelope, and sent it to my house. And I remember even getting the envelope, and I didn't even open it. I just threw the thing in the corner. But when my father passed away, my husband and I tore that room up looking for that envelope, and everything was in.
Wow. No, it's important to keep good record, and that's great. Talking to email, making photocopies. But you're right, I hadn't even thought, because I was like, I have them in one space. But you're right.
Who should have known?
And not even not for nothing. Like look at we'll go look at Hurricane Maria when it hit Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Right?
Everything's gone.
Oh.
You had families for 18 months that had access to none of their documentation,
Wow.
right? So when you go to file a claim with your insurance, how do we know you're the owner of that house?
Right. Where's your
Look at
paperwork?
look at Katrina.
Yeah.
People,
Wow. Yeah.
send off to Houston. They come back, their house has been sold because you can't
Prove that it was yours.
that it
Yeah.
was yours.
Yeah.
So we have to
And they did that a lot with Hurricane Maria, because they wanted to take people's properties in the Caribbean.
This is
Wow.
those things that we're never taught, but we're at the point that we no longer have an excuse, right?
Right,
We
right.
have access to this information, but also those of us who are in positions of power have to have these conversations all the time.
Okay.
Right? Have to have these conversations all the time.
Okay, so we're all blessed on this table, and those of you in the audience also, that we have access to the information, and we have the opportunity to be in spaces. So how do you encourage and let folks that look like us, like, we need to step up, we need to write wills, we need to get insurance, we need to do 401k, we need to, how do we step up?
But it's having conversations like this. It's hosting workshops like the village did for life insurance, for end of life planning. It's having these conversations. People don't even know that Worcester has a black funeral home. I learned that because I went to the village and I seen the flyer. And I was like, wait, we have a black funeral home? Why am I going to all these black people's funeral in these white spaces?
Even in death.
He's a good man too. He was on the show.
Right.
And
I was at a funeral recently for a black person at a white establishment, and it was like they did some real ignorant stuff.
Yeah.
So like, why are we? You know what I mean? If I didn't even know this.
Yeah.
But that means that as a community, we're not speaking and sharing that information. So I think it's creating more spaces like this where we're having the conversations and sharing the information.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So for those of you that are watching, I'm going to be having more spaces like this, more conversation. And if I know your name, you're going to be asked to be on one of the panels. So
I'm gonna say dinner club all day, every day.
Yeah, no, I think that is. I think that.
So for me, one of the big things about dinner club being the way it is so y'all can't. Jaden's 19 years old, right?
Yeah.
We have people that are in dinner club that are 65, 70.
Wow.
But that right.
Because we need to pass down those stories, but also Jaden was in a room last night with 30 other men who look like him from all different walks of life, and everyone's clapping for him as an entrepreneur, but he's doctors, garbage men, commercial real estate. So if he decides at 22, like, sneaker life ain't for me, but I know Darnell Dunn who does commercial real estate, and I can. You know what I mean? So building that network, because forever we've been taught to fear each other and not to work together.
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm totally like 100%. That's not how I rock.
No.
Right? So
well, you can't.
But we have.
We have, and we do. We have, and we do. It's funny. Like, I love that, and I always talk about what you guys do for the men, because I That's not my calling to do for men. Like I'm a woman,
Yeah,
so
you
I
gotta
will
do for
do
your
for
woman.
women, and I'll do for Black women, and I'll continue to show up, and we'll do two tea parties, and we do brunches, and we'll do all these things. But and when I'm there, I mention, hey, like Sean does this dinner club for men because I think it's so important, as you mentioned, representation. He's in the room at 19 years old with men that are 65 and 70 that have
Giving him
lived that
knowledge, giving
experience,
him wisdom.
that he could learn from the knowledge. And one of the things I've always gotten from the village, it's just like our ancestors are so important. And I just call Sean and them the ancestors, right?
Uh, Listen, we're having a death conversation. There's one thing that's guaranteed. At one point, we will.
You will be
We will.
some point. But no, it's so important. I think we've got to learn from our elders. We've got to learn from our ancestors, because sometimes, we can't stop what the world gives to us,
No,
but
you can't.
we can create safe spaces for us to show up, to have the conversation. And, we'll be having conversation that is not televised, because I think this part is important to be televised, to see, because again, everybody on this panel has a voice. Everybody has on this panel is living their truth and speaking their truth. And I think it's so important for people out there that looks like, me and you, to see a doctor, to see a director, to see an ED, to see, a pharmaceutical executive like rocking her locks, that little boy in Texas, and right now, that
Getting
like
expelled from
he's
school.
expelled, he can't go back and say his locks. The boy hair looks so good.
It was neat. It wasn't nice.
Mind you, the Crown Act just passed.
Right, right. So what is the deal?
Legislation to
So that I could go to work normal.
Exactly.
Just
Go on.
my life. Like I don't have to do this dance that you all have to do, right?
Yeah.
I did it in college, like absolutely not, never again. And so I just invite Black people and other justice-minded people to consider divesting from these systems that are not going to do anything for us. Some of us gotta be in there to do harm reduction. You will be blessed for that work, but no one's getting free in these systems. And so if you go to a freedom school, you're not gonna have that problem. If you don't go to the hospital and you choose to go to it, right? Like there's ways to get around these systems that have repeatedly failed us and are going to continue to repeatedly fail us. There's no reforming them. In my own opinion,
I agree with
I
you.
don't know where anybody else is at, but it's what it is, right? Like your roots are too rotten
too
to
rotten.
ever be fixed, right? So I think like college is not the only answer, right? Like
It's
these
not.
big jobs are not, right? But I think really just reinvesting in our community and figuring out what our role is going to be, right? Because at one point, picking berries and raising children was just as sacred as doing like other work. So we really have to, in a mental and every way, divest from these systems because they give us false dreams, and we put our energy towards things that are not going to get us free. They might get your family somewhere, but collectively, it's not getting nobody free. And I just want to speak that because I know there's a lot of people in this community that are active. Like we're not dismantling, we're not doing none of that work. We are creating a different system.
No, absolutely.
Just evolving we're evolving the system of oppression, basically.
No, I mean it's important.
Which is righteous work, because when we do go in there, you do need a Black doctor for those of us who are not there yet mentally, right? Who respects our people, who's going to take care of our people. But our end game should not be, we got to make sure that's not an end game, right? Like hopefully it's some Black cops that are doing their job the right way, right? Because our brother Tyree Nichols showed us 5 Black cops, right? So that speaks to a certain kind of culture. But the hope isn't like, let's reform these police. The hope is, how do we govern ourselves, right? Like, so
we don't need.
There's value in encouraging people to do that work, right? And there's just as much value in saying, let's really figure out a way, because it's not impossible, right?
No,
Like,
it's
we
not
lived in a world
impossible.
where that was possible, but without enough of us divesting from these systems and saying my worth is not wrapped up in boom, 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 then people are going to keep playing there. And then there's going to be other folks who are really committed to getting free and creating something different, not just keeping our people traumatized in these systems that we know are just sucking us up and spitting us out and producing malnourished Black people.
No, and you're right.
I love this child.
That is important. Like,
I'm gonna think it up. I'm gonna let them talk, but not playing in that world.
No,
Y'all got it, but
we're not mincing words with folks any longer. I think the other piece too is like really learn who you are. Learn really what your true history is. Learn really where you came from. because they have done a very good job of poisoning our view of ourselves, right? And each other. And this point, that, right? Cause so you look right. So they try to create these divisions, right? Where Caribbean people are black, different than Black American people. No, I'm not. Because when I'm driving down the street, they see a black chick driving a car, and they don't say, "Ooh, I wonder if she's Grenadian or da, da, da." No, they see a black chick and they pull me over.
They think
When
you're
they
Jamaican.
not Jamaican any, but or my husband, they're not like, hey, is he Trinidadian? No, he is a black guy. Like nobody cares about that stuff. So that those divisions are silly, and the reason that they make those divisions and there's a reason, right? And it started with Haiti because the Haitian people liberated themselves. They fought and kicked the French off of that island and liberated that island. And they came here and they were trading in front of the enslaved Africans here on the continental US. And they did not want them to see that that was possible. So from everything that they have, everything that they could think of to do to Haiti, they have done to Haiti because that is where they show us this is your punishment for trying to do. And that's what they use the Haitian people as an example. Even in Grenada, same thing. Grenada, we have Maurice Bishop. Maurice Bishop did a coup, overthrew the Grenadian president at the time, or prime minister, because we're still under the Commonwealth. But those Caribbean people who don't know, yes, your island is independent, but your person that you praise is the king. Okay, so I'm just going to put that out there. Everybody needs to think about that and do what Barbados did and elect themselves a strong black president because she ain't no joke. But anyways, they did it in Grenada too. Grenada, and Maurice Bishop, he came here. He came to Brooklyn. My grandfather took me to see him speak in Brooklyn, and I never have been in a room full of black people talking about black liberation and the excitement and the energy. And I was a little kid. I didn't know what the heck they was talking about, but I could feel that excitement and that energy. And I just remember being in that room like, oh my God, what is happening? But I had no idea. I've gone back as an adult now and watched the speech that he gave. But you know what happened after that? The United States invented a reason to invade Grenada, invaded Grenada, and they shot Maurice Bishop at the Fort George in Grenada. And to this day, his family does not know where that man's body is because they did not want him spreading the word of black liberation around the world. And what he said was, they see us. They see that the revolution works in Cuba. They see that the revolution worked in all of these different places. And if we unify the working people, is what Maurice Bishop spoke about. Unifying the working class, unifying the working people. And we as the government do the job of the working people. And that's what he was talking about. And he showed where it was successful. And he said that he knew that the United States was not going to let him continue to speak and continue to bring this to the masses because he knew that people would understand and they would follow behind him. So they had to make sure that that man was gone. And every one of us stand up and say, you know what? We're moving forward. We're doing we're going to revolution now. Because to your point, we can't fix it. And the minute that somebody raised their hand and say, I'm willing to do that, I'm willing to take on this fight, they kill them. So we as a community need to figure out how we insulate our leaders. Because frankly, if you look at where we are right now, people are afraid to be a leader in the black space. They're afraid to be a leader in the black space because they know that if you're a leader in the black space, you're putting your life on
Your life expectancy gets even shorter.
You're putting your life on the line. For me to stand up there when it was youth that did the first Black Lives Matter march after George Floyd here in Worcester. They assembled themselves on City Hall.
I remember.
And my husband was watching on live and he said, Jennifer, go down there. Is the kids down there? Go down there. They needed adults. That's when he told me I was an elder. They need elders to go down there and support them.
Yeah.
Right? And I got up, I went down there, and Shayasia was there, Chantal was there, Christian King showed up. We all must have seen it the same thing because we all showed up. And we came out there and we helped them. And I remember at the end they was, having people speak, and I remember talking, and I remember saying, listen, I'm not going to tell you guys not to do what you're doing. I'm not going to tell y'all not to be angry, because honestly, if it was one of my children in the space of what they did to George Floyd, I'd expect y'all to burn this whole damn city. Right? I wouldn't tell you just. And the death threats started before I even got home.
I know it's discouraging because when you speak up about your pain, or like just asking for basic human rights, we do get.
We're just saying, don't murder us in the
That's
street.
it. Basic, like just don't
That's
kill.
all. That's
Don't
all.
kill
Just
me.
don't kill me
Don't kill me.
for being black.
And
That's all I'm asking.
it shouldn't. But I think that honestly, it's why it's important. Like spaces like the Village exists, where it's it's a safe space, and they're consistently teaching about our culture and our ancestors. And I got to shout out these chairs that y'all are sitting on are from
the village chair.
Like,
they're the ancestor chairs. The ancestor chair.
The back of them, they like Henrietta Lacks, like
we gotta make sure we have a Morris Bishop chair.
We'll listen, we get 50 chairs. 50
Yeah, we need a
chairs.
Morris Bishop chair.
These are small freedom colors: red for the blood of our ancestors of the past, black for the beautiful black people or the present, and the green for the land of Africa where every person originates from, or the future, created by Marcus Garvey in 1920. And every chair has a set of powerful people in Black history, local people. Betty Price is on a chair somewhere, right? Like big up. Like, so
yeah.
it's like so share.
Awesome. I know we got
With the white.
oh my God!
Right. Give that white
In the color. It should
Where's
have been
the
the
black?
You know what I'm saying?
It could have
I
been
didn't
yellow.
have enough time to get the black cloth at the table.
But even you think you should mention Marcus Garvey. You think about Marcus Garvey. What did they do to Marcus Garvey?
Yeah.
They freaking persecuted that man over mail. That's what he got deported over, mail fraud.
Yeah.
And the only mistake that man did is that he ain't know nothing about boats.
We've got to continue to tell our stories. We have got to continue to show up in spaces that tell our stories. We got to continue to support, as Shai just said, no judgment, like whatever your space is. Me, I'm like, do what you're doing wherever you are, but show up as you, tell your story. I don't want to say show your humanity, because like you're alive, you're human. But like, don't be afraid to show your story, and don't be afraid to show up in spaces with people that look like you, that reminds you of who you are, when the other spaces that you're in does not let you be who you are. So I know that I said it was like 2 hours, and like we're running out of time, and there was one thing I know y'all could talk. I knew it. And there is so much we could go for hours, but we will come back again. But I really wanted to talk about something because it's something that I've been having a lot of conversation about lately, and it's allyship. And what is an ally? And how can people who want to be ally be a true ally and not, you ain't leaving, girl.
I don't really like that topic. I don't really like that topic.
Like some folks have like said, how can I be an ally? And I think sometimes when you tell them, they like, but, and I'm like, well, you asked me, and I tell you, there's no but. This is how you be. It's just like, okay, how do you be alive? You're alive. So there's no but, right? So how can you be an ally? So that's kind of how we're gonna end it. And one final question, but this is like question 2 of 1. So I'm gonna start with Jennifer.
Oh. First and foremost, like you cannot ever be more mad than me about the condition of Black people. That annoys the heck out of me. If you want to be an ally, you should follow the lead of the people who are in the struggle. You need to follow the lead, and you also need to use the privilege to benefit, right? You stand up and say the things that I can't say without fear of repercussion. There was a great example of allyship in Boston when they did a march after George Floyd, and the police came, and they were actually walking through Franklin Park, and the police came, and there was a group of white people who locked hands in front of the Black marchers, so they were the barrier between the police and the Black people. That's allyship.
Okay.
Right.
I will come to you, Mama.
Yeah. We have lots of white people who come to the village who want to engage and want to be in the culture and want to be respectful of what we got going on. I would just say, like, the only thing that we really need from white folks at the village, right, is money. It's reparations, right?
Right.
On
No,
on
no,
level.
not even,
That's
not
true.
even being
I'm
here.
not
Not.
trying to people are not empowered in our space to teach, right? Like there's other spaces, you get that role, you get that gig all the time. The only thing that white folks can really do to support the work that we have going on is give us money to do what we need to do with it, right? And I would say if more white folks who get it would fall back from their jobs, right? Like let some Black folks get in there, do what they got to do. Um, the harm of anti-Black racism is so deep that I think white people have to really do some deep things in order to there's a little allyship of right speaking, and that's cool, and I appreciate that, and there's a role for that. But radical allyship, like what it really means, might be making sure your house go where it gotta go for Black folks, right? Who haven't had the opportunity. There are people who are that committed to what whiteness means and the legacy of whiteness, right? And how they can kind of equalize that. Not everybody is there, right? They don't have to be. They can do whatever they want to do because they have privilege. But unless you're given like money, resources, no strings attached kind of energy in that regard, I everything else is helpful, but I don't know if it really moves the needle in the way that Black folks need it to still be in positions of leadership and being able to say what we need to say and just do what we know needs to happen for our people because we're not stupid. We know what our people need. It's really just money
Just
and capacity
funds. Yeah.
that's blocking us, right? So I would say that, and then I would say, just as a loving, I always have to say that like none of us get to take a day off from like fighting against systems of oppression that don't belong to us, right? Like I'm not a queer person, so I can never be too tired to fight homophobia. I feel that strongly. Like queer people can take a day off, right? Because that's just exhausting. Um, but that's not like I don't get to take a day off from that fight. So it's white folks, right? But because I try really hard to be Black centered, right? We have a lot of work to do within our own community around misogyny, misogynoir specifically, which is the specific hatred of Black women, homophobia, right? Like all those systems. I think we also have to work to be better accomplices for one another in that regard as well.
So being allies for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like start there.
Yep.
Acknowledge our positionality, acknowledge the roles that we have and how we're seen in systems, right? Colorism is a huge one,
Oh,
right?
colorism.
Like, right here, like me and Miss Jen are both Black women, but I'm not ignorant to the fact that I'm paler than Miss Jen, right? So that means I have skin privilege and I gotta own that and be honest about it. And it's not just about you light skin, you don't text back. It's like light skin. I'm like close to be a life in the okay.
Trini's always talk about red women give you a headache. Red women give you a headache.
It's really not just
yeah,
that.
it's
Like,
not that.
light skinned people go to jail for less time than dark skinned people. They get
It's
jobs.
real.
So it's like
It's a real thing.
it's a systemic issue. And again, I just have to say it like Black and brown people cannot be racist to white people. Like systems of oppression don't work that way. So there's no way for dark skinned people to oppress light skinned people.
Right.
There's systems of like trauma and internalized things that might manifest one way, but like colorism does not go both ways. And I just have to say that because it's important for us as Black people to acknowledge these things the same way like a system that like creates certain situations for women. Like we can be rude to men, of course, we're not perfect, but we don't create a system where
to oppress men.
So if that can't back and forth, like queer people are not in positions of power to like So we got to be honest that oppression goes one way,
Mm.
and everybody is living intersectional lives, which is a term that was created by a Black woman for Black women and has been used to talk about the experiences of others. Intersectionality was created.
really?
It was created by Kimberly
wow.
Crenshaw to talk about Emma DeGraff from Reed's story when she went to work for some kind of car company and they didn't hire her, and she said, "You didn't hire me because I'm a Black woman." And they said, "We hire Black people and we hire women." And she said, "You got white women working in the front desk and you got Black men working over here. You don't have Black women." And she was creating this term to talk about the unique experiences of Black women because we liberate everybody.
Yeah, we do.
Amen.
I love it.
So, I tell you, she is I call her my daughter. Yeah.
Now go talk about
That's your job. You talk.
So, no.
You can
So
just say
I just went to the that recently, and they were talking about allyship. And I felt like it was a Black History Month event with very little Black input into it. So I thought about
How does that happen? Let me be quiet.
it's very easy to happen.
Uh-oh. It
Um,
happens.
make space
Yeah.
and get out the way. Not make space under the guises of I'm giving you this space because I'm looking at. Make space and get out. What I need to do in terms of my Blackness and my fight, your agenda doesn't matter. And I said one of my greatest mentors in life was a white woman, Lynn Simons. When I talk about who got it around racism and but she always made space for young Black men and women, young Latino men and women, kids that were in gangs, to take the mantle of what the fight was, and she just used her privilege to give us the voice. But then at the end of the day, she got the hell out the way.
That's it.
And that created a generation of leadership that came up under her that changed how this city operated for a long time. So being able to do that, but a lot of people can't separate themselves from that. They feel like if I'm giving you the space, yeah, I need to be acknowledged. My agenda has to be part of it. Make space and get out the way.
Okay.
It's simple as that.
Okay.
I'd have to say, when to be an ally, speak up. Speak
When
up,
I'm not in the room, too.
right? Speak up, right. Whether I'm in the room or not, but speak up about racism, microaggression, even when it makes you uncomfortable. So it makes you uncomfortable. That it is what it is, but speak up regardless, because that's when we can truly say, okay, then we're going somewhere, right? And we're making strides. If not, you're not speaking up whether I'm in the room or not, then what does that say about you? What does it say about the direction we're going? So I think that, for me is a big thing. And then make an effort, with even simple stuff like somebody's name and pronouncing it right. It's one of it's one of the things. I remember I was on a call and somebody said that, "Oh, I don't know the pronounce the name. I'm gonna call you like N or something."
And
Because it's hard.
well, keep practicing.
How do you pronounce it? Take me a while to get it, but I want to ensure that I'm pronouncing it right. I don't want to give you a nickname and put something on you and label you something. I want to call you by your name. And that is very, very, very important. I cringe in my skin whenever someone said, "Oh, let me just call you that." I'm like, no, that's not the person name. What are you doing? So I would
No,
say
sure don't.
those two things, become in their life.
Okay. All right.
I think
you.
the one other thing I would add though is sharing knowledge. Because I will say that that's one place, particularly in the business world, where allyship shows up. It's just sharing a little piece of knowledge. I remember getting laid off at a job, and the head of HR, which was a gay white man, said to me, "Jennifer, negotiate your severance." Never in my life did I even know that that was an option. So sometimes it's just sharing information to help somebody to be better or get to a better place.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna be watching this back on replay, y'all.
Right, like, wait, what I miss?
All right, okay. So, first of all, thank you guys so much, for saying yes, for coming on, to sharing your knowledge and expertise. I always learn, when I'm with every single one of you guys. That's why I was so excited, to speak to you guys, in a wrap up, because, in the interest of time and to feed people, we're gonna.
You can smell it. We can smell it.
Poppy already brought that food in. So, let me.
We talk about the other product. Once the Facebook Live goes off, we talk about the other stuff.
So the other part, for those of you who didn't register and come here, listen, y'all don't tell me it's far because my girl came all the way from Springfield. All right. So there will be white rice and mac and cheese from the Taki Romeo. Go ahead, I gotta say,
Can I just be the talking?
you can't be like
Her government name on
Government.
that is her Facebook thing. That's her Facebook
Maybe
thing.
she didn't want to pay taxes on them.
That
That was like, hold on, she got eight.
No, it was generously donated. Doreen Samuels, my mama, she did the curry chicken. I'm not going into dessert again because I don't have time to go. No, no, no.
Let's try.
We ain't gonna talk about it and give authentic Jamaican soda. We're gonna leave it at that. And we're gonna do that. But I'm always so humbled when I have the opportunity to listen to folks, and every single one of you guys, I've had conversations with you guys because I'm always curious, because I think knowledge is something that you can never have enough of, and you cannot be the smartest person in every subject. And I think if you're not learning, you're dead. So I encourage you
Is
to
that a Caribbean saying? You Caribbean saying.
hide it. We have all, as Black men and women, we show up in spaces that we are not welcome. We show up in spaces that we are not celebrated. We show up in spaces that like are truly brutal. And I think for us as Black folks, we need to create our own space. That's the thing. That's the important thing. A space that like you don't have to be anybody but you. Like the men's dinner club, like the village, like the Caribbean festival, like wherever you go, like it for me, it's celebrating our uniqueness, our blackness, like who we are, like no apologies, no explanation. I don't have to explain the joke.
I wasn't gonna do it anyway.
Right.
Like,
You can't get it or you
Don't
don't.
explain the joke.
because if you do, it's no longer
But
funny.
then they gonna come and tell me, and I'm gonna be like,
How you know what the joke meant? Who told you what the joke meant?
don't be telling them. Listen, you put the white olives on the chair, now you telling them.
Right, telling them.
Inviting them.
Sure.
Thank you for having me, Suzanne.
Get right.
Thank you, my
You
brother.
picked the right ones.
Yeah.
I knew I did. I knew I did. But
She just asked her to order.
listen, y'all, buy me some black chair covers.
I know
Thank
that's
you.
right.
I will too.
Little bitch.
Right.
Because nobody can see anyway.
Yes.
I'm done.
That's my people. That's awesome.
The
We still on
ancestor.
Facebook?
Yeah?
Mhm.
I don't know.
But I got some shit to say when we.
That's it.
Okay.
Let's give our final thought. Exercise and let's eat. Dr. Sheri, let me start with you. Our final thought. Yes.
Just be you and take you who you are. That's my final.
All right. Sean.
Move as yourself, whatever space you're in.
Mm,
Never let anyone steal your power. And one thing that I will say, never let the actions and movements of anyone else change how you are emotionally, how you know what I mean? Let's make our movements and our decisions based on what we are and not what anybody else gives.
All right. My last thoughts are just to honor our ancestors, make a way for the generations unborn, the ones that are coming, and that I'm sure Harriet Tubman knew she wasn't going to see the end of racism in her time, right? But she still put train tracks down. And we got to keep putting train tracks down, even if we're not on that freedom train. We have to make sure that we're doing the work. So when our great grandchildren are on it, we know we did our part.
I think my final thought would be, or thoughts would be to protect your peace. Um, yeah, protect your peace, and it's even more important for us as Black people to protect our peace. The other thing is show up or get out the way, right? Like there's not enough spaces, enough seats. If you're not showing up to do this work, get out of the way of the people who want to do this work. Don't sit in seats if you're not gonna utilize those seats, because don't waste everybody's time. There's not enough of those seats. If you're not willing to use the seat to stand up, then get out the way and let somebody else.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, we don't have time for audience questions, so that means you'll have to be in part two.
Now we're gonna talk offline.
Yeah, right. Offline. Y'all who didn't come, y'all didn't come. But I will just end with this. It starts with you. You can't expect somebody to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. We're not fighting against each other. Like, you've got to recognize, like, they don't see us as us against, them. What we're doing is it's us against us. We're fighting each other. So we've got to support each other, encourage each other, just love on each other, because it's hard to get love anywhere else. So just love us. Just love yourself and love your people. That's it. Thank you.
Tell me we're offline already.
Let's know when the mic's now.
Who is it?
Nanny and the
Nanny, yeah.
Yeah.
Nanny and Harriet Tubman are together because they're basically from the same
Yeah.
class.